Okay, yeah, we are live. Just had to wait, see what Facebook was doing in the spinning ball of doom. So, what are we doing today? Okay. All right, so today it's Wednesday. What day is it? Other than Wednesday. Oh, okay, October 21st. This will help me because the last two videos I did, I was trying to upload them to YouTube. One of them failed, one of them didn't. And I had to re-upload one. And 2 weeks in a row, I wore the same t-shirt. So they had near identical thumbnails, and I couldn't tell which one, and I didn't want to upload the same one twice. So that was pretty funny. So today, different shirt. You guys will get to see my wider range of work from home hoodies. One of these days I'll stop dressing like a college student, but today is not that day. So I've got a list of things to ramble on about, I guess. Sometimes people ask me questions, and that gives me an idea. This week, Emma has suggested a topic because Emma said this comes up quite a bit. And since Emma's going to college, we don't have Emma's expertise around to help. And for those of you who don't know, Emma's my youngest. Emma's 20 and going to NBCCD, the New Brunswick College of Craft and Design, and is taking the first year course, the Foundation of Visual Arts, and can then go on to do things like graphic design, which is totally something Emma is good at. Emma's our color consultant in the shop. It sort of started out as a tongue-in-cheek thing, but Emma's actually really, really good at it. So today, Emma said, talk about color matching and matching up your fabrics, because everybody has a problem with this. They come in with a piece of fabric and they're like, I need stuff to go with this. I need it. And we fret and try things, and I'm the kind of person like, we have to put in stuff that we know doesn't really go so we can be more confident about the things that do go. But I'll start you off with some handy tips, I guess. And another thing, I guess, newer quilters and not fabric geeks like me didn't realize sometimes is that fabric, a few times a year for quilt shops, comes out in what they call collections. So there's a designer, like a graphic designer, that will design some nice art prints and stuff that go together, and patterns, and group some colors, and they come out with a collection of fabric. They work with a fabric company and they release a line. And the fabric companies do that 2 to 4 times a year, depending. So I like to order collections because they're pretty and you can find them in quilt shops. So that's just kind of a thing we do. Right now, just small tangent, right now I'm pre-ordering because for me as a quilt shop owner, pardon me, tea time. Tetley's in the pot this morning. They didn't even pay me to say that, and I'll say it anyway. So, where were I? Where was I? Watching too much British TV. Where were I? Never been to Cornwall, but it's coming out. My granddad, you see, was from Ipswich. So anyway, collections. The companies are sending me emails, giving me notices. The reps are calling saying, I got new fabric. It's coming out next year. I want to show it to you. So I get to see what's coming out next year, and some of it I'm allowed to show you, some of it I'm not. But I did yesterday. I made a big spreadsheet about all these ones that I wanted to get and when they were coming out and how much they were going to cost, and shuffled some around so I don't order like 5 things coming out next June and 2 things coming out in February. I just kind of want to spread it out a little. It's easier for me, better for you, so you don't get hit all at once. So they come out in collections, and some darn good, gorgeous ones. And sometimes I'll only get part of a collection, like I did with this particular one. So these fabrics, these are called Botanical Oasis, and they look sort of disparate. This one's all succulents. This one's a big, lush floral, so floral succulents. And this is a really graphic, sort of repeating, angular type directional pattern. I'm definitely seeing some kind of bag or wallet out of this one. So you'll start with maybe a pattern like you really like this one. I'm like, I gotta put this in a quilt, but how do I find matching stuff to go with it? First step, totally the easiest. And this is why people like the pre-cut bundles, because when they make a jelly roll or a layer cake or a charm pack, they're all fabrics from the same collection, from the same designer. They all came out at the same time. Anything in that jelly roll is usually also available on the bolt. So something like this would have a jelly roll that I don't have, but that's a different story. So you already know that these three things are going to go together. You might not put them in a project together. Somebody else might. We might add some more. Like another fabric from the same collection is this diagonal stripe. And honestly, it really does go with everything because it's got the same pink, the same sort of grungy feel, and we already know it matches. So we can be confident that, yeah, it's going to look good in our finished quilt. They even had a darker print, smaller floral, this time in a black background, and we know we can stick it with anything in here. It's still going to go. It's really cool that way. Like, you can put two of them together. Actually, I would put a solid with this. I'm a fan of solids and things. So actually what I did goes to my next tip. When I'm looking for things to match, and I know a few of you do this already, but if you look at the selvage, this is the woven edge of the fabric called the selvage. This is what's attached to the sides when it's going through the machine where they weave all the threads together. This is along the sides, so there's thread folds literally right along the edge here. And they print all the colors that they've used in this big print. So you can literally take any of these dots, hold this little piece up to some other solid or another blender type fabric. A blender is usually something that's really plain. It's got sort of just maybe a texture on it, a really nondescript sort of pattern that you can use that would complement something when you don't want a full-on solid. I got blenders coming too. So you would look at these here, and that's what I did earlier this morning because I decided I wanted pink to go with this. And it turns out this, I think this is Carnation. Carnation Kona totally matches. I matched it up with the dots on the selvage over here. And it wasn't an exact match, but honestly, for most projects, it's close enough. And I like pink and black. I like black pink too. I know. Sorry, K-pop reference that maybe 2% of my audience is totally going to get, but they're cute girls. They have nice pop tunes. I got to dance while I'm quilting. What do I say? So that's your tip for the day. Use the selvage. Use your selvages. Sorry, that was my next thing falling on the floor. Use your selvages. Use these pretty little dots. It'll help you become confident in your color choices, and you already know these things go. So you don't have to stop and think, does it really go? Because you've already got basically an expert saying, yes, we've matched these for you. They go. You find something in those ranges, it'll go, especially if you stick them together and you say, I like this. So I've had people stick 2 or 3 things together and go, well, I like it, but does it go together? I'm like, if you like it, it goes together. End of story. Yeah, that's all. There are no rules. We're breaking them. How can you break no rules? We don't know. I used to tell my kids you have to learn what the rules are so you can know which ones you can break and when you're allowed to break them. That's one of the fabric rules. You can break them. I'm going to pick up these rulers I dropped. Okay. Speaking of matching fabrics and collections, because we just were, and I'm going to take I don't know who's on here. I can't really tell. Maybe there's nobody. Maybe I'm talking in the air. Maybe there's like 20 people. I don't know. So speaking of fabric, I made masks this weekend because I wanted to try a new mask pattern that wouldn't fog up my glasses as bad. Because I do have a mask pattern that I really, really liked in this shape. That's the other side. This is paper. This was the face mask pattern from Lori Nune Maker, N-U-N-E. I can provide all these links later. I keep meaning to put them in the newsletter and keep forgetting. Because I'll go, I gotta go write that down, and then I leave the room and forget what I was doing. It's old. So anyway, if you see this face mask pattern, it's getting pretty raggedy about the edges, and the more you cut around a paper template like this, the worse, the less accurate it gets. But I got tired of, I really like how this fits, and I really like how it looks on the face. And you can do like a lot with the fabric there, and it's got one seam. It's nice and comfortable and snug, but it's hard to talk through because your chin just flaps out of the bottom here. And your glasses fog up unless you stick a wire in here, and I'm just not having fun with that. If it's not fun, I won't do it. So I went on the hunt for some anti-fog type mask patterns, and if you've been in the shop this week, you've seen me wear this one, which is super nice. It goes right up under here. I love it. And it's got the elastics that just go behind the head, because I found when they go around my ears, which is easy to sew, but hits my glasses and does this. And I have progressive lenses, and if you don't look through it right at just the right spot, everything goes to pot. You can't see a darn thing. Good morning, Linda. Thank you for showing up and listening to me ramble. Somebody left a comment. I'm chuffed. I can move on. So, okay, when I did this pattern, I picked this nice fabric because I wanted to showcase it, and I fussy cut the pattern piece on the fabric so that the hummingbirds were like right smack in the center. And I wanted to try two patterns, so I made two masks. One for me, one for Ron, the husband, because he'll try anything at least twice. So this is the same print, because you can see a little bit of the hummingbirds right here. But I chose a different spot to highlight for his mask, and it's got a big stag on it. And I realized after I posted the picture, when he wears it, he looks like he's given like deer kisses or something. So we can go out in our matching pink and purple masks with fantasy forest animals on it. Okay, so this mask with the nice little nose bit for me and my glasses was from the JapaneseSewingBooks.com site, and the piece looks just like this. So you cut out one big piece and a lining. That's it. Super easy. There's just different ways you fold it and stitch down. I found it really easy and anti-fog, no wires. It was great. Ron's was a little similar, but it was called an origami design, the Aplat mask, origami design. And these guys were more focused on less waste, and they had a lot of tips for low waste and less environmental impact and stuff. And you can see where I folded some of these patterns just to help center, because I wanted to help center things. So I fold it right in the middle to flip it back and line things up before I cut. So the other thing, no, I will get that. Okay, did rotary cut. So this is also really good. This one's really good too, because even if you do ding a line with your rotary cutter, they're all straight lines. You can cut that out of cardboard pretty easy. And then have a stiffer template to work with. Even something like this isn't too bad. That works really well. But I did get something in if you are making masks in bulk. And like I said, a paper template with curves in it over time, you'll just have to print a new one or get a stiffer template, because you're going to ding the edges and lose minute bits of those pattern pieces over time, and it'll just get less accurate. And I did notice as I went, they kind of got a little smaller, little smaller, little smaller. My other tip for masks is pre-wash the fabric first. I'm not usually a pre-wash the fabric kind of person, because I like the shrinky, crinkly look on my quilts. But for the face mask, you've got it all nice and fitted, and then you wash it, and it shrinks a little bit because it's 100% cotton, and now it's slightly too small. So wash the fabric first, get out all the sizing. You're going to be breathing that in your face. And then cut your stuff out. Then after you wash it, because you're going to wash them a lot, it won't be shrinking and stuff. I like to give it a nice press with my iron when they come out of the dryer, or if they've been air dried. So there's that. So let's say you're making a lot of masks, and some of you are making a ton of masks. I've been asked for these, and eventually all the other ruler companies are coming up with them. a mask ruler template. This one has 3 sizes included. I have a June Taylor one coming. I checked online that order another truckload of stuff is on the way. Well, maybe not truckload. A box full of stuff is on the way to me. I had to reorder stuff, which is good. Very good. So this is the So Steady Stay Safe with So Steady and their face mask ruler that comes in 3 sizes. Looks like this. It has the ties, or you can put elastic in it. You know the drill. And they're all like, they're like nested. So if you use a smaller size, you're supposed to keep the smallest inside. Like you wouldn't cut around this. That's a little too little to hold on to. Just take them like this. They also provided some non-stick rubbery stuff to stick on there too. So it's got lots of like directions on here. It's got 3 sizes. I've been testing them. I didn't quite get around to finishing. Since they have a casing, they use the extra bit of acrylic template here and cut out a stiletto for you to run the elastic or ties through the casing, which I thought was really great. The instructions are pretty thorough. They give you a couple of pages of instructions. There's a video you can watch. And these ones are 25 bucks. Like I said, I got as far as cutting stuff out, but it's a similar mask design to what everyone else is using, so I know it's going to fit well. And it's got that nice peak at the nose, so I can tuck it under my glasses. Looks like this. And if you have been doing a lot of masks, you might find it more useful to have a ruler, a nice acrylic template to cut around. Now, the only thing I found with this one, especially as you get into the smaller sizes, is this inside curve here is really, really curvy. And the bigger rotary cutter here kind of doesn't. So you want one of the smaller rotary cutters. The 28 millimeter one will be fine, just to cut in around that curve to be as accurate as possible. I mean, you can still just lay this down, trace around it, and cut on the lines if you wanted. You can still do that. But if you're going to rotary cut a lot, use a smaller blade for this side here. I mean, you could go around all of it. I should probably talk about rotary cutters in another video because there's lots to talk about. I mean, you would not believe. At least 10 minutes of rambling from me, maybe 5 or 10. Yeah, I could go on 5 or 10 minutes about a rotary cutter. No problem. So yeah, that's that. If you want to save some time and you're doing stuff in bulk, there you go. Because you can just layer up, cut maybe 4 or 6 at once, depending on how much you're comfortable with cutting. So that's all the masks. And we talked about the colors. I really like that line. I mean, that's just pretty. I mean, who doesn't like, honestly, you know I like pink. I mean, pink succulents. Yeah. And yes, I cut mask fabric. I cut one of the florals from that line into some masks, and then I had to recut it because there was one flower in there I didn't really like. It had like a big dark center, and it was going to be like right here, so I had to fussy cut stuff. I'm just picky that way. So more mask rulers are on the way, along with some restocking stuff. The fun part with the restocking is the suppliers are having supply chain issues. Everything that's shipping is having shipping issues. Everything's just taking longer, but we're all in the same boat. Everyone's being pretty patient. Everybody understands. There's nothing we can do about it. Just be patient. And for something like quilting, it's not like you have a quilting emergency usually. Hello, Elizabeth. Liz. It's not Elizabeth, it's Liz. Okay. Hi. Thank you for joining us. So, supply chain. So, there's more fabric. I keep ordering fabric and keep waiting for it to say that they've finally shipped it. I pre-ordered some fabric that is released this month in October. Although at one point they said all their releases were happening a month late, but that was back in the spring. So I don't know if this is coming out in October sometime or if it's going to show up in November. But yeah, I ordered it back in the spring for release in the fall. So I knew this was coming, and I can't wait to show you because it's got bees all over it. It's really pretty. Oh my God, it's so pretty. The other thing I ordered just yesterday And they packed it and put it in a box and said that it's on the way to the post office, is the Glide thread. So we have some Glide thread. And we have more Glide thread coming. And they had white back in stock because when I first started looking, they didn't have any white. But by the time I ordered, they had white. So I got some white coming. So the Glide thread is polyester. This is a 5,000 meter spool. But if you're quilting and you use a long arm or a mid arm or just do a lot of quilting on your regular machine, you do a lot of quilts with this. I would say probably a half a dozen depending or so. That's a conservative estimate. Depending on how densely you quilt. If you're like me, you go through a lot because you quilt like a lot. Yeah, I was going to say I go through how many bobbins I go through. I could probably figure it out from that, but yeah, it's pretty good. So this is a really nice shiny polyester. They like to say it's a trilobal thread. And the funny yet kind of scary thing about the word trilobal, anything that says tri means three. So like, you know, triangle, trilobal. So we know it has three sides. The threads are trilobal. If you looked at the thread microscopically in a cross section, it would look like a bumpy dented triangle. And the reason I know this is because I watch crime shows like Forensic Files, and a lot of the carpet fibers that they find at scenes, crime scenes, they've had to investigate, and some of them are trilobal fibers. So I'm like, that is very cool. Not long arm thread, but the same sort of idea because they're polyester. This is polyester. Polyester is a manufactured thing, not a natural fiber. It won't cut your quilt. It won't cut your fabrics. They've come a long way. That was the 60s. This is, you know, now way a lot later. It's older than that's older than me. So they've come a long way. This is shiny. That was my point. You can use it for if you have a machine embroidery attachment for your machine, or if you have a big embroidery machine. These are great for that too. That's what it started out at, and then the long armers started using it and really liked it. I love it because it's shiny, because I want to see the sparkle of that thread. And I've had a few customers use it for piecing, which you can totally do, and it's actually a really cost-effective piecing. I find it a bit slippery. That's just me. But if you've tried it for piecing, let me know. So I've got some. That's coming from either Alberta or BC. I can't quite remember, but somewhere out west. So give it a week or so, probably 2. That's how long it takes stuff to get from out west. A couple of weeks, if I'm lucky. That was Tuesday. Yeah, probably by the end of next week. We're hoping that Glide thread's going to be here. Cross your fingers. Then I'll go to the post office. I'll pick it up. They'll give me a box bigger than me. I'll waddle out to my car with it. Super fun. So the other thing I thought I would talk about, wow, I'm really talking and making this a long one, but that's fine. You guys love these things. The other thing I ordered in for somebody was some right angle triangles, because I had one and somebody bought it, and then the lady across the street from hers borrowed it because they were using it to square up their half square triangles. This is the bane of existence of everybody, I swear to God. So sometimes when you're making half square triangles, you can't be very neat. I'm going to use my handy shelf here. And what some people like to do is square them up this way before they open. Oh wow, that actually probably would work, because I could see just from that it's off just a tiny bit. And in quilting, 1/8 of an inch, 1/16 of an inch off on a tiny piece like this, yeah, you have to take care of it because that'll multiply through your block. So some people have had a lot of success with trimming their half square triangles like this before they open them up to their final. I like to open them up and then trim them with a squaring up ruler. People have used the Tucker trimmer ruler to do the same sort of thing, because it has the same diagonal lines here that you could use to line up and trim your triangles before you open them up into a square. But I'm one of those people who likes to open them up first because I'm a heavy presser. I'm not an ironer. I'm not a presser. I'm an ironer. I rip that fabric right, like stretch that fabric all out. So I like to square it up after I mangle it with my iron and press it open and stretch the heck out of this seam usually. And then I trim it up with a nice square ruler and get it all nice and square. But when I'm really getting going and I do the smaller things, this is the kind of thing I like to do, is use paper. Sometimes I just call it paper piecing, but it's not really, not for half square triangles. But you use the paper. This is triangles on a roll. This one makes the 3-inch finished. This is a lot smaller. I have some 2-inch finished and some 4-inch finished. But if you're making a lot of half square triangles out of the same fabrics, this is amazing. You can do so many all at once. I was showing our block of the month group that we have. And see, here's a smaller roll. The triangles on a roll is very similar to the Fangles type stuff. And I don't know what I would do without it, because that's the only way I can get half square triangles really, really neat and tidy. And the smallest half square triangles I have ever made finished at 1/2 inch. They really did. And I did not cut out little triangles and then sew them together. I cheated and used graph paper and slapped on a piece of fabric. Really did the paper piecing method. Slapped on the piece of fabric, put down the neck, sewed the seam, flipped it over on the paper, and just keep going. Slap the fabric down, sew where you're supposed to sew on the drawn line, and keep going. I will grab that for you because everybody sees this. You will see this when you come into the shop, and there's only 2 reactions. Oh my God, you're crazy, and how did you do this? I love it. People love it. So this is one of my little pieces. That's paper piece. So these are the 1/2 inch finished half square triangles. This is, yeah, it's like a little tiny thing. This is all paper pieced. This took a good 6.5 hours, I think. It was a Saturday well spent. I didn't do much of anything else. Do they come in a flying geese? Ooh, I don't know. The triangles on a roll, flying geese. Actually, funny that you should mention it. One of the rulers I just showed is a flying geese ruler. Now they get you to cut out the triangles and then cut out these ones and help. There's a whole method in here. It looks pretty dandy. For flying geese, I like to do the 2 at a time method, where you have a bigger square and you put the 2 little squares on it. I can show you that, Linda, if you come in sometime. Or we can talk about that next week. Maybe next week we'll talk about flying geese. I don't have a pencil. Somebody remind me later that I was going to talk about flying geese. So I'm going to wrap it up here soon, because now I'm really off topic. I have a sticky note for topics. That's my agenda. It's a sticky note, 3 things. That's how I run things around here. So yeah, look, I put this in a quilt show, and there was like, every quilt has to have a hanging label, hanging sleeve. So I'm like, I put this on, and it's almost as big as the quilt. But yeah, 1/2 inch, half square triangles. You can get Fangles this small, but I just used strips of graph paper for these. And it was really, they go faster than you think, and they're accurate as all get out by the time you're done, because you're just sewing on printed lines on your paper. Love this so much. I want to do more, like in these little flying geese. They're all paper pieced as well, from a pattern that I bought online to support the designer. Well, I guess since I've rambled on for a good half hour now, I'm going to say goodbye, because I really need another cup of tea. And in 20 minutes, my alarms are going to go off and say, open the shop, open the shop. And I have to clean the shop now before I open it, because if you saw my table with all the stuff that I showed, it's just, I just fling it like Eleanor Burns, just flinging stuff off to the side. It's a whole total mess over there. So we talked about color matching, we talked about face masks, and we talked about half square triangles. Now what you can talk about is, you can tell your friends about the shop. You can tell your quilt guilds. You can tell your sewing groups. You can tell your sewing buddies. It's so fantastic. Anybody who's doing any masks or anything, you can tell them, because we've got a clearance rack, man. That's awesome. I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to see you next week. You have a great day.